Well, hello, Minder patrons. Welcome back to another studio tips here on Patreon. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you a warm-up routine that I've kind of devised. It's a lot of fun. It's a good way to practice watercolor control. Just get your brush out. It'll help you get into the paint, into the mixing, into the intensity, amount of water, color changes, really anything that you want to practice in terms of just control and brushwork. And what it is just a very quick, easy way to subdivide space and give you a variety of shapes to paint. Now, what I use for this is called the Zentangle method. If you've ever heard of Zentangle, you know, it's just a form of doodling that was real popular. And I use this basically just as a quick, easy way to subdivide space, so you're not sitting there meticulously drawing out shapes. And the Zentangle method basically just takes, and I'm going to divide this paper roughly in half and just show you, this is just sketchbook paper, and then we'll do it on watercolor paper and actually paint some shapes. And really all you're doing is you're placing a dot in each corner. Doesn't have to be exact. In fact, exactness is probably what you don't want to do. Zentangle, again, as I say, is just a quick way to subdivide space. Then you connect these dots with some kind of random line and make it wavy. Doesn't have to be extremely wavy, just make it a very random sort of line. Okay? The next thing you do is you divide that space, and I usually divide it into fourths. And again, you don't use a straight line, you use something curvy or a little bit irregular. We're going to do that. You now have 4 spaces. Now, Zentangle, again, as I mentioned, was a doodling method. And, you know, if you are familiar with Zentangle or ever did it, you know, you would go on to continue to subdivide the space into little designs and stuff. All that I'm after and all that we're after in a watercolor warm-up situation is to give yourself a variety of shapes. So start out with one side and start dividing that space into irregular shapes. Now, Zentangle could get really, really intricate and small. So I don't want you to get too small with these. You can do one in fairly small shapes. So I don't want you to keep the shapes roughly the size of a quarter in area or larger. So maybe I'm going to do an angular sort of subdivision like this. You can come up with your own, or you can copy mine if you want. The point is to subdivide a space into sort of a thematic look. And you see I've got roughly the same amount of area. And I don't really want to subdivide my space any more than that for the purposes of practicing. Okay. Then maybe we'll do some curved shapes. Maybe sort of half moon kind of shapes. Don't be real particular. Just give yourself roughly the same amount of area in each case. Okay? And maybe we'll do some long shapes. Let's try like some curvy long shapes. And if you're left with a shape that doesn't fit with your overall theme, that's totally fine. Maybe stop one short. The theme I'm going for here is just long shapes. Okay. Then maybe do one where you vary the size. Okay. Maybe shapes within shapes. let's do like more squarish or trapezoidal shapes, and then come back in with a smaller shape inside. Again, don't fuss over this. Oh, is that the right kind of shape? Or maybe I don't like that shape. It doesn't matter. What I've done is I've just very quickly divided this up into a variety of shapes. So this is your warm-up. Okay, that's the general method. So let's move on to a piece of watercolor paper. Cut your paper into, you can take like a sheet tear-off pad of arches and cut it into 4 pieces, and you can use front and back. What I'm using is this B cotton paper, and I would use the paper you're going to paint on. So if you'd like to paint normally on cotton, use cotton. This is a good practice paper though, this B. This is a 6x9. You can get it on Amazon really inexpensively. 50 sheets for, I'm trying to remember, it's less than $15. I'll put a link down below. These sheets I've just cut in half. If you use a full sheet, like 9x12 sheet of watercolor paper, I would cut it into fourths and plan to use both sides so you're not wasting. So let's take the same idea that I just demonstrated. I'm just going to tape down my paper here on the corners. Some white artist tape. I'm going to be teaching this or using this in my upcoming local class. If any of you are patrons and are taking my local class, you will see this again. Not only is it a good way to warm up, but as a teacher it's going to tell me where some of your control weaknesses are, and it will tell you the same thing. It'll give you something to work on. Alright, let's do the same thing. I'm going to put a dot in each corner. I'm just using a Sharpie pen, fine point pen. Anything that's permanent and waterproof is fine. Then go through and sort of make a thematic sort of shape quadrant in each of these. Keep the spaces roughly the same amount of area. I'll do one that's just sort of a random jaggedness here. And you can subdivide a space again if you want. So I'm going to go for some long, slender areas. Maybe some horizontal, maybe some vertical. Let's see, how about triangles? Similar to an angular shape there, but not as many sides, not as many angles. Not really triangles, I guess. I'm just, but this is the point. You're giving yourself a variety of shapes, and you're quickly, and I emphasize quickly, don't fuss over this, subdividing your space into a variety of shapes. Now you're ready to warm up. Now there's several things that I focus on, or suggest that you focus on, and you can pick what seems to be the most trouble for you. One is flat washes and blends. A good way to start out is with flat washes. You can vary the colors. In fact, I suggest that you do vary the colors so that these all look different. Focus on getting the most perfect flat wash you can and getting the color intensity that you want. Okay, move on to a different color. Right now I'm just sort of using palette dirt. Try to space between the one that you've done so that you're not bleeding into another one, unless that's the exercise you're trying to create. So flat wash, great way to warm up. If you've seen my flat wash video that I did a few years ago actually, make sure you're using a large enough brush. You want one that has a good point allowed you get in these corners, but you want one that's big enough to give you a smooth wash. The smaller you get, the harder it is to get a smooth wash in an area like that. So a number 8's a good size for these. I won't fill all these in, you get the point. As these dry, you know, while they're drying you can space them out further, and then as the ones you previously did dry you can go and fill them in. Then do one that's just blends. This is another good warm-up. And blending over these irregular shapes, you'll start to see why these shapes are important, because you're not just giving yourself a simple square. Okay? And when I do the blend warm-ups, I like to graduate it out to almost no color. And if you need to go back and watch my blend videos, then do so. By the way, these kind of warm-ups, these kind of exercises are the things that you should be able to do almost without thinking about how to do it. It's hard enough to draw and get values correct in watercolor without having these technique issues bog you down. Because by the time you get to painting an actual picture or a subject, you don't want to have to be thinking about this. You want to be doing the best job you can painting your subject. Okay, again, I'm going to skip a space so I don't bleed into that. Try blending in a different direction, like blending over a shorter area or into irregular areas. And if you want more pigment on this side, then charge in. However you like to do a blend. Charging wet and wet, leading edge with a brush, a damp brush, however you like to do it. Go the opposite direction. Try for perfectly graduated blends. Again, loose blends are fine if that's what you mean to do, but when you're practicing, try to get control of your paint. And you can skip like this. You can go do the solids, do a few of these. After these are dry, come back and do some more. All right, here's another one. Intensity. Do flat washes. If you're having trouble controlling water pigment ratio, then take the same color, dedicate one quadrant to painting it in different value tints. Again, trying to get the most perfect flat wash you can. A concentrated square or a concentrated shape, a more pastel shape with a little less pigment. If you do a really pale shape, be able to get the concentration that you want. Again, without hardly thinking about it. This kind of water control is basic. You need to have this control. I'm repeating myself, but you need to be able to do this almost without thinking. Then try color blends. Start with one color on one side. Get them to perfectly blend in the middle. In a nice, smooth gradation. With pure color on both ends. And go for a completion here, a really high level of quality here, meaning you're not being sloppy. I'm being sloppy and I'm showing you quickly, but try to stay within the lines while you do it. Try to exercise as much control over this as you can. Again, I emphasize it's easier, even if you want to be a loose painter, it's easier to lose control once you've gained it. We'll do a green blend this way. We'll blend that down to a nice Prussian blue, and I am not trying very hard to stay in the lines because I'm just trying to quickly show you. And you may be able to think of your own exercises. Do flat wash charging, and I'll use this section here. Paint a flat wash. So get the area even, nice flat wash. Go back, make sure your area is evenly wet all over, not puddly wet, but evenly wet, and get a different color and charge. See if you can get some nice even blends through charging. With charging, you want more pigment than you really want water. If you get a lot of water in a charge, you're going to end up with a background. So practice charging, and then you can dry your brush out a little bit, and sometimes you can move these around. So make up your own challenges, practice your own what you feel are your trouble spots, and just do an entire area. You can do an entire Zentangle for one thing, like blends. I mean, with all the different shapes. Pick your trouble spot and practice it. Real quick, real easy to do. And who knows, by the time you're done, you may have something that's kind of fun and interesting to look at. A nice little abstract doodle. I hope that was helpful. Thank you, Minders. Appreciate it. Thanks for your patronage and your support. See you in the next video.